Good morning. It's time for the North Carolina Vinyl Picker Show. And on this episode, we're going to go back to 1987. Yes, what was you doing back in 1987? Well, I was on a plane and I was heading to the Philippines. And I stayed there for 3 years. And I had a wonderful time while I was there. And also, we're going to go ahead and go through the records that I picked up this week. Now, there wasn't very many. It's Christmas week. A lot of the funds are going to other places. And I spent 4 nights in the hospital. I did, and just doing a little tune up here. In 2024, getting a little tune up, and everything came out well. Thanks for all the people that gave me well wishes, and I try to keep it on the low T. But yeah, so that's done, and I'm back. And I'm sorry for not doing my show on Wednesday. I was a little busy at that moment. So let's get right into it. I got this 45 in the mail while I was gone, and this is Leorme. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the bottom word because I'm not Italian. I'm French Canadian, so I struggle with that. So this is a 45 from Leorme, and it's really cool to have, and I'm glad to have it. Their albums are pretty expensive, so I don't know how soon I'll be getting those. Now this album here is by a member of the Pretty Things, and this album here is by Twink, and it's called Think Pink. And this album here is just fantastic. It's great psych music, so if you're into that kind of thing, and the album is pretty cool color, and I was glad to get this in the mail. And so that one there, I got that one while I was out. I also picked up this album here for about $5. It was really cheap. It's a blues band, hard rocking band called Rhinoceros, and the album cover is pretty cool too. And it was on the Elektra. So there you go. And this one here, I played it last night, and that album sounded pretty cool. The last album that I picked up was by this man here. Played with King Crimson during the 80s, and he made some solo albums. And it's called, it's by Adrian Belew, and it's called Lone Rhino. This is a fantastic album. Both of these, he made a couple of records that were really good in the 80s, going into the 90s. Yeah, so I really enjoyed listening to this one. After I usually listen to them, I'll file them away and pull them out sometimes when I get time to do that. And I'm setting up my wall. I'm going to give you a new room tour soon because I'm redoing my wall, my record wall here. I'm redoing all that. So and I did some stuff back here. And I've got some new speaker wire come, and I got a rug, and just kind of changing things up a little bit for 2025. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a room tour. I know everybody's going to be looking forward to that. So now let's get back into it. So 1987. What was you doing in 1987? Put the comments down below. Don't be afraid to write down your comments and put down what your favorite records were from 1987. Number 10, coming in number 10. Now, it's going to be a whole bunch of people who are not going to know this record, but that has a lot to do with a lot of the stuff I listen to, isn't it? But in number 10, my friend John's going to know this record. This was a band called Man Jumping, and it was called World Service. And the 80s were relevant in the 80s, let's just say. The music was a lot different. And this album here is a lot different. So if you like something a little bit quirky, you might want to give this a listen. You probably find it on Spotify or one of those streaming services. But it's called Man Jumping and World Service. Coming in at number 9. Now this album here was at the tail end of Alan Parsons Project's run of albums. And this is Antonio Gaudí. And this album here is just fantastic. It's got lots of hits. Closer to Heaven and La Sagrada Familia. And there were some excellent songs on this album. And it wasn't soon after this they split, and then Eric Wolfson passed away a few years ago. But that's coming in at number 9. If you like Alan Parsons, don't sleep on this last album they did together. And then there was another one after this one, but it didn't get released till way later after that. And then Alan Parsons did some solo stuff after that, after they split up. Coming in at number 8 is Roger Hodgkin. Now, this is his second solo album after he left Supertramp. And I remember listening to this album a lot. It's called Hi Hi. And I played this album a ton. And so if you like Roger Hodgkin and you like Supertramp, this is what happened to Supertramp after he left. He started making solo records. Coming in at number 7 is a jazz album. This album here, I remember playing a ton also back in '87. And I still play it to this day. It's a guitar player. The album's called Inferno, so that tells you something right there. Borelli Lagreen. This album here is a smoker, so if you like jazz and you like fusion jazz, then this album here is for you. This is number 7. Borelli Lagreen, Inferno. Coming in at number 6 is a band, the second wave of progressive rock. Neo-prog, I think they call it. This is the band IQ. And Peter Nichols had left the band, and another guy came in and started singing with him for 2 albums. This is the first of 2 albums. This album's called Namzamo. So if you like IQ and you're not real sure about the middle period of them, and before and then after, this is like the middle section. This is the 80s version of IQ, more pop oriented. Then you'll love Namzamo, and then the next album, which I'll probably be showcasing in the next week or 2. So there you go. They had some hits on here too. No Love Lost, Promises as the years go by. It's a good poppy album. It's an 80s thing. It's it's Invisible Touch. It's Phil Collins. It's all that stuff. It's all the 80s that you know and love, that you know and hate, whatever. Either you love the 80s music or you're not a fan of the 80s music. Coming in at where are we at? Number 6? 6. Coming in at we're down to number 5 already. Wow. Coming in at number 5. Yes, we're holding on with Trevor Rabin, and they did Big Generator. And they had Hold On, and then Rhythm of Love, and Shoot High, Aim Low. They were just struggling along. This was after 90125, and then they come out with this one, and it wasn't as big of a hit as that one was, and then the next one, and then Rabin finally left the band. But this album, it's not a bad album. There's a couple singers in here, but for the most part, it's a pretty good record. Big Generator. Chris Squire's bass lines, just amazing. This is a sealed copy, actually, because I can tell because the record's not in the back. Coming in at number 4. I'm glad I haven't screwed this up. This is Sting and Nothing Like the Sun. I'm not a huge fan of the Police. I did like Synchronicity. I remember having that on cassette and I wore it out. I think I told that a few years ago, a few shows ago. And I like Sting. His first couple albums, and then I kind of lost track of him after that. But it's more jazz oriented, and I really enjoy that. Listen to Sting, and his first 2 solo albums were probably the best, and then there's a couple more after that are pretty good. But yeah, Nothing Like the Sun. It has We'll Be Together, Still Beat My Beating Heart. They're Dancing Alone. Some great songs, man. He was an awesome songwriter. Still is. Coming in at number 3, one of my friend John's favorite groups, Pat Metheny Group. Jazz album made it to number 3. Wow. Still Life Talking. And I think John saw him during this show. I didn't see them in '87. But also, I think Anderson, Wakeman, Bruford Howe came out in '87. That didn't make the list, but that's a good '80s album as well. I was overseas, going overseas and stayed there. So there's a lot of shows I missed from 87 to 90 because I wasn't in country. I was away in the Navy. So this album came out in 87, and I was glad to find this. This is a pretty pricey record if you can find it in the wild. And I think I got lucky and found a copy for like $10. Still Life Talking, Pat Metheny Group. Coming in at number two, Pink Floyd made an album in 1987. It was The Momentary Lapse of Reason. Yes, this started out being a David Gilmour album, a solo album, and it turned into a Pink Floyd album. And then the other two members of the band ended up on the album. Yeah, it's a good album. It's an 80s album. It's 80s Pink Floyd. What can I say? So the Division Bell, the one to follow this would be a better record, I think, out of the two. That's the show that I seen, and that's going to be in a few years from now. So 1987, coming in number 2, Pink Floyd. Coming in number 1, like I always say, there can only be a one record, a number 1 album. And this would be Marillion. And I didn't see this tour either. This is another tour I didn't see, Clutching at Straws. I think this is John's favorite Marillion album. It's right up there for me too. It's close to be a number 1 for me. It's a great album. It's a perfect album. There's not a bad song on this whole album. This would be the last album to feature Fish. He would leave after this and make some solo stuff. So that was it. That's my top 10. And I noticed that the series is not going so well. I started off in the 70s and I was going up. I got into the 80s. It kind of leveled off. And then now that I'm getting to finish the 80s, it's going off the cliff. Well, I think a lot of that has to do with they're my top 10 and they're not the Billboard top 10. So people found out that that was the fact, and it started. I had like 200 people watching, and then I had 150, and then I had 100, then I had 75, and then I had 60. And now I have about 50 people watching the show. But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going all the way up to 2025. I'm going to keep going, and I'll get there next year. I want to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm going to get a chance to go up to Norfolk, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'm going to be out there doing some record shopping and bring back some stuff to bring to the table, like I always say, to show you fine people out there in YouTube land. So if you're having Hanukkah or you're having Christmas, have a very merry time and enjoy your family while you have them, because time is short. So take care. We'll be seeing you soon, and we'll be seeing you next week. Yes, we will. We'll see you next week. Won't be Wednesday, though. It'll be next weekend. So I'll be missing another midweek show, and that'll be on Christmas Day. I won't be having a show. So don't look for me on Christmas. Just enjoy your family, and I'll see you next weekend. North Carolina Vinyl Picker, what am I going? I'm out of here. Talk to you later.